It's Monday again, and your alarm jolts you awake. The blanket wraps around you like safety. You're reluctant to leave. A thought sneaks in. Staying 5 more minutes won't ruin anything. Meanwhile, across the city, someone else hears that exact sound and leaps into their morning. They sit in silence, move their body, and face their hardest task before others are even conscious. What draws the line between these two people? It's not genius, not fortune, and certainly not some mystical edge. It's sheer discipline. Here's the hard truth. Modern life is built to weaken us. Temptation and ease surround us everywhere. A few taps on a screen and we're flooded with dopamine. A craving hits and food shows up within the hour. Our favorite shows, all episodes instantly there. We've normalized comfort and lost our edge. But ease has never carved out character, and it never forged greatness. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of a vast empire, could have indulged endlessly. Yet he chose structure. He once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." For him, this wasn't abstract wisdom, it was his survival kit. Leading an empire demanded mental armor that only comes from rigorous thinking. The Stoics grasped a truth we've mostly abandoned today. Discipline isn't about pain or lack, it's about liberation. The more you rule yourself, the less anything can shake you. When you command your reactions, you chart your fate. And when you guide your mind, you unlock doors most never see. But here's the secret few mention. Discipline doesn't mean stripping away your humanity or becoming cold machinery. True discipline, the transformative kind, emerges when you deeply understand what matters most to you and then live like it. It's when your purpose becomes so undeniable that distractions lose their appeal. Reflect on when you were truly proud of yourself. I'd bet it wasn't during a lazy afternoon. It was when you faced a challenge, followed through, and didn't cave in to comfort. That spark, that victory, is discipline's gift, and it beats any momentary high. The Stoics crafted a framework to build this level of control. They didn't theorize from ivory towers. They faced invasions, betrayals, deep grief, and still stood firm in their ethics. They lived by enduring principles anyone can adopt. Epictetus, once a slave, became one of the most respected minds in history. He taught that no harm could touch you unless you allowed it. This isn't just emotional resilience. This is mastery of your thinking. Because once you shape your mental reactions, you shape the whole of your life. Now, I'll walk you through 10 ancient Stoic laws that will rewire your mind for discipline. These aren't slogans to make you feel good. They're time-tested tactics that helped regular people achieve exceptional strength for over 2 millennia. But don't forget something essential. Knowing means nothing if you don't apply it. You could binge every self-help video and still stay stuck. These principles require effort, patience, and the courage to step outside your comfort zone. Your future self depends on what you choose today. Each moment you favor discipline over urges, you step closer to who you're meant to become. Each time you run from growth, you abandon that better version. Before we begin, drop this line in the comments. I choose discipline over ease, and I am becoming unstoppable. Like this video if you're done playing small. Comment to affirm your choice. Share this with someone who needs to toughen up, and make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss what's next. Law 1. Morning Victory. Principle. Seneca once said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." That early moment in your day, that's your new beginning. And how you start decides how you finish. The first Stoic rule of discipline is both straightforward and deeply powerful. Win your morning, and you win your day. Most people start by scrolling through notifications. From the moment they wake up, their head is filled with other people's noise, drama, and opinions. That isn't productivity, it's surrender, disguised as staying informed. The Stoics viewed early hours as sacred. Marcus Aurelius didn't begin with messages from distant provinces. He began by checking in with his own thinking. He primed himself for the day's tests. He reminded himself what truly mattered. Your morning habits are a declaration of war against mediocrity. If you rise and immediately do something difficult, be it physical training, silent reflection, or deep work, you're conditioning your brain to prioritize effort over ease. You're reinforcing what psychologists call your willpower muscle. But here's what truly matters. Your routine must hold personal significance. Copying someone else's ritual because it's trendy misses the mark. Stoicism always emphasized personal truth and accountability. What works for a top executive may not fit a college student. What suits a single adult may not work for a parent. The real strength in morning victory isn't the checklist. It's about staying loyal to the promises you make to yourself. If you say you'll get up at 5 a.m. and you follow through, you prove to yourself that your word means something. If you say you'll read for 20 minutes and you do, you're showing your subconscious that you follow through. Think of the most self-disciplined individuals you know. Without fail, they've mastered mornings. They understand discipline is like a bicep. It strengthens with use and shrinks without it. They use the early hours, when their self-control is sharpest, to build momentum. Science backs this too. Your prefrontal cortex, responsible for reason and restraint, is strongest early in the day. As choices pile up through the day, decision fatigue sets in. That's why saying no to junk food is easier at 8 a.m. than at 9 p.m. when you're mentally drained. But owning your mornings isn't just about crushing tasks or building achievements. It's about sculpting identity. When you rise early and embrace difficulty, you begin to see yourself as someone who thrives under effort. When you start with deliberate purpose, you embody intentionality. Your identity and your actions feed one another. The Stoics taught that character is forged through repetition. Start every day choosing laziness, and soon you'll become someone who defaults to laziness. Begin your day with willpower, and you'll build a life of willpower. Your morning doesn't need to be complex or take hours. It needs to be consistent and just challenging enough to stretch you. That might mean making your bed without delay. It could be knocking out a short workout. It might be jotting down 3 things you're grateful for. The action matters less than the intention and follow-through behind it. And don't aim for flawlessness. Aim for forward movement. Some mornings you'll be off. Some days you'll stumble. Discipline doesn't mean you never mess up. It means you get back to your rhythm without beating yourself up. The Stoics never said setbacks meant failure. They knew failure was part of mastery. Law 2, emotional responsibility rule. Epictetus, who lived through hardship and servitude, once taught one of the most powerful ideas ever expressed. What matters isn't what happens, but how you respond. That's the second Stoic law of discipline. You must fully claim responsibility for how you react emotionally. Most people go their entire lives being emotionally reactive. One person cuts them off in traffic and they're upset the whole day. One rude comment from a coworker and their mind can't concentrate. A text isn't answered fast enough and they spin into anxiety. That's not life. That's emotional slavery. The reactive mind believes feelings are automatic, like storms we can't avoid. I can't help being mad, they say. This situation is stressing me out. But the Stoics knew better. They taught that there's always a moment, a pause, between what happens and how we respond. And in that pause lives your greatest power: choice. Picture the last time someone upset you. Maybe they dismissed your ideas, forgot something important, or made a hurtful remark. It probably felt like your reaction exploded instantly. But what truly happened was this. Your brain made a judgment about the situation, interpreted what it meant, and based your emotion on that meaning. Interpretation is everything. Two people can go through the exact same experience and feel totally different. One gets fired and crumbles. Another gets fired and sees a new path. Same event, different meaning. This is where discipline becomes essential. Controlling your emotions isn't about ignoring your feelings or faking calm. It's about owning the stories you tell yourself. Ask questions like, is this thought helpful? Is this emotion moving me forward? What would the strongest version of me do in this moment? Marcus Aurelius asked these questions constantly. As emperor, he faced betrayal, wars, and loss. Yet he trained himself to find meaning in the chaos. He wrote, "Very little is needed for a happy life. It's all within your thinking." This wasn't just theory. It was a daily tool. Here's how to use this in your life. Start by observing the space between trigger and response. When anger rises, pause and ask, what's the story I'm telling myself here? When you feel nervous, explore what future assumptions you're making. This isn't about becoming emotionally numb. Feelings are valuable signals, but they should guide, not dominate, you. You can admit to being angry without lashing out. You can feel sadness without letting it steal your day. The Stoics had a practice for this. They visualized losing what mattered most, not to be grim, but to develop mental strength. They knew clinging to things we can't control leads to pain. When you release your need for specific outcomes, nothing can shake your inner calm. And here's the beauty of emotional ownership. When you stop letting others control your mood, you become emotionally independent. You discover your happiness isn't tied to someone's tone, the economy, or perfect conditions. Your peace becomes self-made. This discipline takes practice. Begin small. The next time someone irritates you, hold your reaction. Breathe 3 times. Ask, what would discipline choose here? You'll be amazed by how much power you truly hold inside. Remember this simple truth. You don't always get to decide what happens, but you always decide what happens inside you. That's not just philosophy. That's a skill that can change your whole reality. Lock this in. Drop it in the comments. I control my emotions and I choose how I respond. Law 3. Mastery of the now. Marcus Aurelius once advised, stay within the present. That simple line holds the third Stoic principle of discipline. Mastery over the present is mastery over life itself. Most people exist everywhere except in the now. Their minds are stuck, reliving past regrets or fast-forwarding through future fears. They scroll endlessly, comparing their behind-the-scenes to curated highlight reels. They're physically present, but mentally scattered. This fractured attention destroys discipline. A mind without control is like a computer with 50 tabs open, jumping from thought to thought, memory to plan, distraction to impulse. With so much noise, nothing gets done well. It's not just inefficient, it's exhausting. Your brain burns precious energy bouncing between thoughts, leaving you mentally tired and emotionally flat, without having truly accomplished anything meaningful. But the Stoics knew the truth. Life only happens in one place, this moment. The past is gone and untouchable. The future is unsure and mostly uncontrollable. But right now, this instant is where your power lives. It's where choices are made, actions are taken, and meaning is created. Think back to the moments you felt truly alive, fully absorbed, deeply fulfilled. I'll bet they happened when you were present, Maybe it was a deep conversation with someone important. Maybe during a workout where you lost yourself in effort. Maybe while creating something meaningful. In those moments, there was no distraction, just full presence. Modern psychologists call this flow. The Stoics had their own word, prosos, total attention to the now. They knew that when your mind is rooted in the present, your clarity sharpens, your emotions stabilize, and your decisions improve. But present moment mastery isn't just about doing more, it's about finding peace. When your mind stays here, anxiety fades. Fear only exists when the mind leaps ahead into imagined threats. When you're fully grounded in now, guilt disappears. Regret only exists when your thoughts are trapped in a past that can't be changed. But staying in the now is hard. Today's world is built to shatter your focus. Notifications, headlines, viral clips, they all pull your mind in 100 directions. These industries spend billions to steal your attention. But here's the secret that disciplined people understand. Attention is your most valuable resource. Where you place your focus shapes the quality of your entire life. When you direct it toward the present, you unlock your greatest power. The Stoics had a practice to help with this. They asked, "What is the most important thing I can do right now?" Not later, not tomorrow. Now this simple question slices through mental chaos and brings clarity back to the present. Another Stoic method. Be fully engaged in whatever you do. If you're eating, really taste it. If you're walking, feel the ground beneath you. If you're speaking, give the other person your complete presence. This isn't some abstract mindfulness exercise. It's a form of discipline. It builds mental strength through focus. When you train your mind to stay here, life becomes richer. Moments become more vivid. Relationships deepen. You stop missing your own life because you're too distracted to notice it. You start to live what the Stoics called ataraxia, a steady calm that comes from being truly grounded. This moment is your training ground. Every time you catch your thoughts drifting and gently pull them back, you're doing a rep in the mental gym. Every time you choose to focus on what's in front of you instead of a screen, you're building your attention muscle. Law 4, turning barriers into breakthroughs. Marcus Aurelius endured one of the most turbulent reigns in ancient history. While a deadly plague swept his empire and enemies attacked from all directions, he wrote, "The obstacle to action advances action. What blocks the path becomes the path." This is the fourth Stoic law of discipline. Every difficulty is secretly an invitation to grow stronger. Most people treat resistance like a red flag. They think struggle means something's wrong. They face a setback and see it as a reason to quit. But the Stoics held a radical view. Barriers aren't blocks, they're weights. They exist to be lifted. They're your training ground. Picture how a muscle grows. It doesn't develop from staying comfortable. It grows from effort, from strain, from being pushed beyond what's easy. Character grows the same way. Every challenge is a test of who you are. Every hurdle is a chance to build grit. Every loss is a lesson in resilience. The reactive mind sees struggle as an attack. "Why me?" they complain. "Why can't this just go smoothly?" But the disciplined mind responds differently. It asks, "What is this moment trying to teach me?" Or, "How can this experience sharpen me?" This isn't fake positivity or pretending things don't hurt. Hardship is real. Grief is real. Failure is painful. The Stoics didn't deny this. They simply refused to waste the pain. They extracted wisdom from every wound. Epictetus put it bluntly, "We don't control what life throws at us, but we absolutely control how we handle it." Don't talk about your values, he said. Live them. And when you learn to reshape obstacles into advantages, you stop philosophizing, you start transforming. The way to begin is simple. Reframe the challenge. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "How is this helping me?" Instead of, "This is terrible," say, "This is training." Instead of, "I can't handle this," choose, "This is preparing me for more." And something profound happens. The fear fades. You stop dreading struggle. You begin to see tests as your path forward. This mindset is known as amor fati, love of fate. You stop merely accepting life's storms. You embrace them. Take the entrepreneur rejected by dozens of investors. Each no wasn't failure. It was feedback. It refined their message, clarified their vision, and strengthened their resolve. Rejection wasn't the wall, it was the map. Or imagine an athlete who suffers a devastating injury. They could give up, or they could use recovery to learn, grow mentally, and return even stronger. The injury isn't the end. It becomes the forge that builds their future strength. Here's the core truth. The obstacle isn't separate from your journey. It is the journey. The struggle you're facing right now, it's shaping the very traits you'll need later. You don't become capable of handling your dream life without facing the fire that forges that version of you. This perspective changes everything. You stop avoiding difficulty. You welcome it as part of the transformation. You stop seeing setbacks as signs of failure. You recognize them as preparation for your next level. The Stoics believed in a rational universe where every event carried meaning, even if hidden. Whether or not you believe the same, acting as if it's true gives you power. Treat every difficulty as a mentor. Become a lifelong student of adversity, and you will never be stopped. Law 5. Choosing hardship on purpose. Seneca, among the richest men in Rome, made a strange habit of living like he had nothing. He slept on bare floors, ate tasteless food, and wore rough garments. Not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he understood the fifth Stoic law of discipline. Self-imposed discomfort leads to real strength. Most people design their lives around avoiding difficulty. They want the temperature just right, the food delicious, the entertainment constant, and the effort minimal. They've built such soft routines that even minor inconveniences feel like crises. That's not thriving, that's hiding. The Stoics understood that comfort dulls us. Too much ease weakens the body, softens the mind, and enslaves the spirit. When everything is pleasant, you forget how to be powerful. When everything is smooth, you forget how to adapt. When everything feels good, you lose the ability to say no. Voluntary discomfort is the cure. Consider every meaningful skill you've ever learned. None came easily. Reading was once hard. Your brain had to work to decode letters into thoughts. Driving was stressful at first. Your body had to learn complex movements under pressure. Difficult conversations were uncomfortable. Your emotions had to be managed while speaking honestly. Every bit of growth came through tension. That's the key. If you want to be comfortable during chaos, you have to rehearse discomfort. If you want to hold firm when the storm hits, you have to practice in the rain. If you want to stay disciplined under pressure, you must train that discipline when the stakes are low. Seneca called this mental drill premeditatio malorum, the anticipation of misfortune. He visualized losing his health, wealth, or reputation, not as a pessimist, but as a warrior preparing for battle. If he could face loss in his imagination, he'd be ready when it came in reality. But Stoic discomfort wasn't just mental, it was physical too. They knew the body and mind were connected. Harden one, and you strengthen both. That's why they embraced cold, hunger, and challenge. Modern science supports this. Cold exposure boosts focus chemicals like norepinephrine. Fasting increases brain plasticity. Physical hardship toughens your mind through something called cross-stressor adaptation. Handle one kind of stress, and you're better at handling others. So how do you apply this? Choose the harder path, regularly. Take a cold shower instead of a warm one. Walk instead of drive. Push through a tough workout. Say no to short-term pleasures. Skip a meal. Sleep on the floor once in a while. These aren't punishments, they're practice, but don't confuse this with self-abuse. Voluntary discomfort isn't suffering for suffering's sake. It's preparation for reality. You're not trying to be miserable. You're learning to stay steady, no matter the conditions. And here's the twist. The more you train discomfort, the less it scares you. The more you stretch your tolerance, the more room you have to operate. The less you depend on comfort, the more power you hold. Epictetus said, freedom isn't getting everything you want, it's wanting less. When you stop chasing comfort, you break the addiction to ease. You stop needing perfect conditions to be okay. That's true resilience. Psychologists call this distress tolerance. Your ability to feel pain, anxiety, frustration, or doubt, and not let it break you. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs, but you can sit with it, you can breathe through it, you can stay present while others escape. That's your edge. Begin with something small. Wake up earlier. Do 5 push-ups when your body says no. Eat one meal just for fuel, not flavor. The specific task doesn't matter. What matters is that you choose the harder way, consistently. Now drop this in the comments. I welcome discomfort, and I'm becoming unshakable. Law 6. The Mortality Mirror. Marcus Aurelius kept a skull on his desk, not to be dark, but to remember one unshakable truth. You could die today. Let that guide what you do, say, and think. This is the 6th Stoic law of discipline. Reflecting on death gives life purpose and urgency. Most people act like time is endless. They delay important talks, ignore their dreams, and waste hours on meaningless distractions. They treat death as a distant idea, something for others, something far off, something not worth thinking about. That's not just denial, it's dangerous. The Stoics had a name for this practice, memento mori, remember death. They weren't being negative, they were being awake. Death is the only guaranteed part of life, yet we spend most of our lives pretending it won't touch us. That illusion weakens our focus and our discipline. Think back to the last moment you were reminded of life's fragility. Maybe someone close to you passed unexpectedly. Maybe a health scare shook you. Maybe you witnessed an accident. In that moment, everything snapped into clarity. Petty fights seemed foolish. Delayed dreams felt urgent. Wasted time suddenly looked tragic. That's the power of remembering death. It burns away the noise and exposes what matters most. And here's what's incredible. You don't need a crisis to reach that clarity. Death reflection is a tool you can use daily. To focus your time, to cut the nonsense, to prioritize meaning. When you truly grasp that your time is limited, you become intentional with every hour. Steve Jobs, who faced a terminal illness, once said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the best tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." That's not philosophy, it's focus. When you know time is short, you stop wasting it on trivial things. The undisciplined mind avoids thoughts of mortality because it's uncomfortable. But the disciplined mind embraces it because it makes everything else sharper. It asks, if I had 6 months left, how would I live? What would I stop doing? What would I finally begin? Who would I speak to from the heart? What would I create? What impact would I leave? This isn't obsession with death. It's obsession with living fully. When you know your days are finite, you stop taking them for granted. When you remember that each conversation could be your last, you show up with more presence. When you realize that you're on borrowed time, you stop letting days slip by unnoticed. The Stoics believed that fearing death was really fearing unlived life. We aren't scared of dying. We're scared of reaching the end and realizing we never truly lived. Death reflection cuts through that fear. It forces us to live deliberately. Seneca wrote, "Let us examine ourselves and rid ourselves of the faults we've acquired." Each night he reflected, how did I use today? Did I honor my values? Was I guided by purpose? This wasn't self-punishment. It was self-alignment. He understood that his greatest wealth wasn't gold, it was time, and he wanted a return on that investment. So how do you practice this? Start your day by acknowledging it could be your last, not to panic, but to focus. End your day by asking, if I died tonight, would I be content with how I lived today? Did I love well? Did I serve something beyond myself? Did I waste precious hours on nonsense? This ritual transforms your mindset. You argue less. Your energy is too valuable. You take bolder steps because time is too short to play small. You become more disciplined, not because you're scared to die, but because you're determined to truly live. Thinking about death isn't morbid. It's a reminder that life is a one-time gift. It pushes you to treat each day like it matters, because it does. It encourages you to live with urgency and clarity, because one day you won't get another morning. That future self, the one lying on their final bed, will either be proud of how you lived or filled with regret. Start making choices that honor that person now. Law 7. Power through imagined. Epictetus taught his students a powerful exercise. When you kiss your child goodnight, silently tell yourself, they may be gone tomorrow. Not as a curse, but as a method to deepen your gratitude. This is the 7th Stoic law of discipline. Envisioning loss builds appreciation and mental resilience. Most people assume that imagining terrible outcomes only leads to fear or sadness. But the Stoics discovered something different. When you mentally prepare for misfortune, you become more thankful for what you have and more prepared to handle whatever comes. This practice is called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortunes. And it's one of the most practical mental tools the Stoics ever developed. Think about how most people worry. They obsess over losing their job, getting sick, or facing heartbreak. But they do this passively. They panic without planning. They dread outcomes without preparing solutions. This only creates anxiety with no upside. The undisciplined mind either avoids imagining worst-case scenarios or spirals through them without control. The disciplined mind uses imagination strategically. They don't just picture what could go wrong. They picture how they'll rise in response. Here's how it works. Once a week, spend 10 focused minutes imagining the loss of something important. Your career, your health, your home, a loved one. But don't stop at the moment of loss. Go further. Imagine how you'd respond. What steps would you take? What lessons would you learn? What inner strength would you discover? How would you rebuild your life from that place? This practice does two remarkable things. First, it makes you grateful, instantly. When you imagine going blind, your eyes become a miracle. When you picture losing your ability to walk, you cherish every step. When you consider losing someone close, you value every moment more deeply. Second, it makes you mentally tough. If the imagined loss ever becomes reality, you're not caught off guard. You've already visualized your first moves. You've trained your mind to feel the weight and not be crushed by it. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, once said, "Everything can be taken from a man except one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That's what this exercise gives you, a choice. No matter how dark things get outside, your internal posture remains yours. The Stoics weren't doom and gloom thinkers, they were realists. They knew that life contains suffering. They simply refused to let it surprise them. Most pain doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from the shock, from expectations not being met. When you practice visualizing setbacks, you shrink that gap. You reduce the emotional hit. You grow flexible. You become the type of person who can bend without breaking. But here's the balance. Negative visualization isn't just about rehearsing loss, it's about rehearsing strength. You don't just imagine devastation, you imagine fortitude. You don't just picture endings, you picture how you'll endure and adapt. You prepare, not panic. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Loss is nothing but change, and change is nature's joy." Everything in life is temporary. Our jobs, our relationships, our possessions, even our bodies. Clinging to them causes pain. Accepting their impermanence gives peace. So how do you apply this? Make it a weekly ritual. Choose something meaningful and picture its absence. Then, crucially, visualize how you'd rise. Where would your courage come from? What would you build next? What would you hold on to? This practice trains what psychologists now call your psychological immune system, the inner capacity to bounce back from adversity. When your mind has rehearsed difficulties, you gain quiet confidence. You become what modern thinkers call anti-fragile, not just surviving shocks, but growing stronger from them. Law 8. Become the person. Your goal demands. Epictetus once said, "First decide who you want to be, then do what must be done." This is the 8th Stoic law of discipline. Stop chasing outcomes and start becoming the kind of person who achieves them. Most people approach discipline backward. They fixate on results instead of transformation. They want to drop weight, but don't become someone who prioritizes health. They want more money, but don't turn into someone who makes wise financial choices. They crave better relationships, but don't grow into someone who shows up with consistency. That's why most efforts fail. They're trying to force new behaviors from an old identity. They're battling who they are instead of upgrading who they are. Every action you take casts a vote for the kind of person you are. When you exercise, you're voting to be someone fit. When you write, you're voting to be a writer. When you meditate, you're voting to be someone who values clarity. The Stoics believed identity was flexible. You aren't born disciplined or scattered. You're not born with courage or fear. These aren't fixed traits. They're molded through consistent practice. Think about the most disciplined person you know. They didn't wake up that way. They became that way by choosing discipline again and again, until it became part of their nature. They took the harder route often enough that it became their default setting. Here's the revelation. When your identity aligns with your habits, effort becomes ease. The athlete doesn't struggle to train. Training is what athletes do. The reader doesn't force themselves to open a book. Reading is what readers do. The person who sees themselves as disciplined doesn't wrestle with willpower. Discipline is who they are. But changing your identity takes more than wishful thinking. It takes what researchers call identity-based proof. You need evidence that you are the person you claim to be. That evidence comes from action, especially the small, repeated actions no one sees. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be like the rock that waves keep crashing against. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." He became that person not by declaring it, but by living it daily. Each morning, he checked his intentions. Each night, he reviewed how well he lived by his values. So where do you start? With a question: who do I want to become? Not what do you want to have, but who do you want to be? Someone brave, someone disciplined, someone creative, someone calm. Get specific, then ask, what would that person do today? If you want to be healthy, how would a healthy person eat lunch? If you want to be successful, how would a successful person spend their evening? If you want to be mentally tough, how would a mentally tough person respond to stress right now? Start with one action that aligns with your desired identity. Don't try to change everything overnight. Choose something small you can repeat daily. Maybe it's making your bed. Maybe it's writing one paragraph. Maybe it's walking for 10 minutes. The specific task is less important than the consistency behind it. Every time you do it, you reinforce the identity. Every follow-through becomes a brick in the structure of your new self. Over time, these tiny actions lead to massive shifts. The Stoics called this ascese, spiritual exercises. They understood that growth isn't magic, it's a craft. Just like becoming a better athlete or musician takes reps, becoming a better person takes intentional practice. You don't just wish yourself into discipline, you train for it. You live it until it lives inside you. And here's the beauty. Identity transformation doesn't require perfection. It only requires direction. Every time you act in line with who you want to be, you move closer to becoming that person. Every decision your future self would respect pulls you toward that future. You don't become your highest self all at once. You become them, one disciplined choice at a time. Law 9. Build the process, not just the prize. Seneca once wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." He understood the 9th Stoic law of discipline. True progress comes from building strong systems, not just setting lofty goals. Most people are addicted to chasing goals. They write lists, dream big, and map out outcomes. But weeks later, their motivation fades. They burn out. They feel lost. Why? Because they've focused on where they want to be, not on how they'll consistently get there. They're obsessed with the finish line and ignore the race. The problem with goals is that they're short-term by nature. You hit one, and then what? You feel empty or anxious about the next, or you miss it and feel defeated. Either way, you stay stuck in a loop. Setting goals is like hiding clutter in a closet. It might look clean for a moment, but the mess isn't solved. The root habits still remain. The Stoics saw through this illusion. They taught that lasting change doesn't come from what you want. It comes from what you repeatedly do. That's where systems come in. A system is a set of consistent actions and routines that naturally lead to better results over time. When you focus on the process, the outcome takes care of itself. Here's the truth. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your habits. If you want to lose weight, stop obsessing over the scale. Create a system of daily movement, home-cooked meals, and consistent sleep. If you want to write a book, don't fixate on the finished manuscript. Build a system that includes daily writing, weekly editing, and ongoing learning. Great outcomes are just the byproducts of great systems. The beautiful thing about systems, they don't rely on motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Systems stick. Motivation is weather. Systems are shelter. On days when you feel lazy, your system still moves you forward. That's real power. Marcus Aurelius had a system for staying aligned. Each morning, he wrote his intentions. Each night, he reviewed his choices. It wasn't about hitting a goal, it was about consistent personal growth. The Stoics called this kaizen, steady, continuous improvement. 1% better each day might not feel like much, but over time, it compounds into transformation. That's the secret. Results come from repetition. So how do you create systems that work? Start by returning to your ideal identity, who you want to become. Then ask, what does this person do daily? If your ideal self is strong, maybe they train every day. If wise, they reflect or read. If focused, they remove distractions. These aren't goals, they're behaviors that build character. But here's the key. Keep your system simple enough that failure is hard. Don't aim to work out for an hour daily. Start with 5 push-ups. Don't commit to reading a book a week. Start with 1 page. Don't force 30 minutes of meditation. Start with 3 deep breaths. Simplicity fuels consistency. Seneca didn't just give away large donations. He practiced small acts of generosity every day. That rhythm made him generous, not the size of his giving. Audit your current systems. What are you doing regularly that helps you become your future self? What are you doing that moves you away from that vision? Design your system so your environment and behavior make the path of discipline automatic. Remember, goals define the destination. Systems determine whether you get there. When you trust the process, the results follow naturally. Law 10. Virtue is the real victory. Marcus Aurelius, who possessed immense wealth, influence and pleasure, once wrote, "Very little is needed for a happy life. It's all in your mindset." This is the 10th and final Stoic law of discipline. The only thing that truly matters is virtue. Everything else is optional. Most people chase external achievements, convinced they'll lead to lasting fulfillment. They think happiness lies in getting the right job, the ideal relationship, the perfect body, or more money. But the Stoics discovered something profound. Anything outside of your control cannot bring you true peace. What you truly own, and what no one can ever take, is your character. The Stoics taught that there are only 4 essential virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These aren't vague ideals. They're practical tools for daily living. Focus on these, and you become untouchable. Wisdom means seeing reality clearly. It's understanding the world as it is, not through fantasy or fear. It allows you to make decisions based on reason, not emotion. When you develop wisdom, you become immune to manipulation, internal or external. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking right action despite fear. It's doing what's needed when it's uncomfortable, risky, or unpopular. Courage is the muscle that gets you through adversity. Justice is fairness. It's treating others with integrity and remembering that your well-being is connected to theirs. When you live justly, you become a source of trust and strength for others. Temperance is self-control. It's enjoying life without being ruled by cravings. It's enduring hardship without collapsing. With temperance, you gain balance, something most people lose in extremes. Here's what's powerful about virtue. It can't be stolen. Someone might empty your bank account, but they can't steal your integrity. They can smear your name, but they can't change your honor. They can injure your body, but they can't touch your soul unless you let them. Epictetus, born into slavery, found complete freedom in one place: virtue. "No one can harm you," he said, "without your consent." This isn't physical invincibility, it's moral strength. When your happiness depends only on your values, you're free from every external force. The real discipline, then, is making virtue your compass. Ask not, "Will this make me rich?" but "Will this make me wiser?" Not, "Will this make me liked?" but "Will this make me more just?" Not, "Is this easy?" but "Is this the courageous path?" This doesn't mean you reject success or pleasure. The Stoics weren't monks in caves. They weren't against wealth or recognition. They simply refused to be ruled by them. They called such things preferred indifference, nice if you have them, but never worth your soul. The Stoics had a saying, "The best revenge is to not be like your enemy." In other words, when others act without virtue, don't let them pull you down. Rise instead. Stay anchored in your principles. Marcus Aurelius, facing betrayal, war, and constant pressure, still chose virtue every day. He wrote, "The best way to avenge yourself is to not become like the one who wronged you." That is the ultimate victory. When you prioritize virtue, everything else falls into place. You stop fearing failure because you know you're growing. You stop chasing approval because you're grounded. You stop fearing loss because nothing essential can be taken from you. These laws aren't ancient decoration. They're your roadmap to strength. But remember, knowing is nothing without doing. The Stoics made it clear, philosophy isn't for lectures, it's for life. Epictetus said, "Don't talk about your philosophy, embody it." These laws only change you if you live them. They only build discipline if you put them into action. Choose one law today that resonates. Maybe it's mastering your morning. Maybe it's taking control of your emotions. Maybe it's acting with virtue. Start there. Practice it for 30 days. Don't overwhelm yourself by trying all 10 at once. That's a trap. Go deep with one. Progress, not perfection, is the path. You'll stumble. You'll have off days. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're in the fight. The Stoics never demanded flawlessness. They expected effort. They knew discipline isn't about beating yourself up. It's about adjusting, realigning, and staying on course. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "You have power over your mind, not external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the Stoic message in full. Your mind, your actions, your character, that's where your true power lives. These 10 laws aren't abstract rules. They're practical tools to awaken that power. The world needs people with discipline, people who remain steady in chaos, who delay gratification for greater rewards, who hold on to values under pressure. By building discipline, you're not just changing your own story, you're contributing to a stronger world. Your future self is waiting. Every time you choose effort over comfort, you build that person. Every time you apply these Stoic teachings, you invest in a version of you that can handle anything. The path doesn't end, but it does get lighter. The habits become your rhythm. The principles become automatic. The future version of you, they begin to take shape. If this message sparked something in you, hit like. Share your biggest lesson in the comments. Pass this to someone who needs it. And subscribe for more tools to help you become unshakable. Remember this, you're more capable than you think. You're stronger than you feel.